Most writers are told one of two things. Either fiction doesn't pay at all, or that a few successful books can replace a full-time income quickly. Both ideas sound convincing. Both are incomplete. For most fiction authors, income looks like hundreds to a few $1,000s a year for a long time. And understanding why matters more than chasing exceptions. In this video, we'll break down how much fiction authors actually make using conservative numbers, real industry data, and clear explanations of how money actually moves through publishing. This is for early-stage fiction authors who want clarity, not motivation, and systems, not slogans. Indie Inc. exists to explain how publishing actually works. We focus on income mechanics, timelines, and structural realities, using industry data from sources like author earnings, Alley, and written word media. No flexing, no promises. Just clear explanations so you can make better decisions earlier. Indie Inc. is a place where writing meets execution. To understand those numbers, we need to start with why author income feels so hard to understand in the first place. Why author income feels impossible to understand. Most writers start with the same question: how much do authors make? And almost immediately, they get frustrated. One reason this confusion persists is that publishing income doesn't behave like income in most other creative fields. In many industries, income correlates clearly with output. More work equals more pay. Better work equals higher pay. Publishing breaks that assumption. A book can require the same amount of labor whether it earns $50 or $50,000. The production cost in time and energy is almost identical. What changes is discoverability, positioning, and distribution leverage. This disconnect creates emotional whiplash. Writers assume effort should predict outcome, and when it doesn't, they assume something has gone wrong. But structurally, publishing was never designed to reward effort evenly. It rewards alignment, timing, and distribution mechanics, not fairness. Another source of confusion is that publishing income is rarely linear. Most people expect progress to look like a straight line. Book 1 earns a little, Book 2 earns a bit more, Book 3 earns even more. That does happen sometimes, but more often, income plateaus, dips, or spikes unpredictably. This makes it hard to tell whether you're improving or stagnating. A writer might release a better book than their last and earn less money. Another might release a weaker book and earn more. Without understanding how algorithms, retailer incentives, and reader behavior interact, income looks random. It isn't random, but it's opaque. There's also a language problem. Publishing discussions mix gross revenue, net revenue, advances, royalties, and lifetime earnings without clear distinctions. A headline might say, author earns $5,000 per month, but omit whether that's before or after expenses, before or after taxes, sustained or temporary, across one book or 20. Each omission adds noise. For new writers, this creates a dangerous gap. They aren't failing. They're navigating a system that doesn't explain itself. This is why author income feels impossible to understand. Not because the numbers don't exist, but because the system hides how those numbers are generated. Fiction income doesn't come from one pipeline. Traditional publishing, self-publishing, hybrid deals, audio-first contracts, and foreign rights all pay differently, on different timelines, with different levels of author control. Some income is upfront, some arrives years later, some is predictable, some is volatile. When surveys or articles compress all of this into a single number, clarity disappears. Publishing income follows a power law curve. A small percentage of authors earn a large share of total revenue, while the majority earns smaller amounts. That doesn't mean most writers are failing. It means the middle looks very different from the top. This is true in traditional publishing and self-publishing. A writer in their first year is often compared to a writer with a decade-long catalog. That's like comparing a first paycheck to a retirement account. Without time context, income numbers mislead instead of inform. Imagine 10 authors. One earns $250,000 in a year. 9 earn $5,000 each. The average income becomes $29,500. But no one in the group actually earns that amount. Author income feels confusing because different systems, uneven distributions, and missing timelines get collapsed into one misleading number. What typical even means in publishing? Before talking about dollar amounts, we need to slow down and define what typical actually means, because publishing does not operate like a normal career ladder. Across author earnings and ALI surveys, the majority of fiction authors earn part-time income. Often this looks like a few $100s per year, a few $1,000s per year, occasional spikes followed by quiet periods. This is not a failure state. It's the default state. Another reason typical is so hard to pin down is that publishing includes many invisible categories of authors. Some writers publish consistently but quietly, earning small but steady amounts for years. Others publish sporadically, with long gaps between releases. Some treat writing as a serious side business. Others treat it as a hobby with monetization turned on. All of these authors are counted together. That means typical often describes behavior more than skill. A writer earning $3,000 per year for 5 years is behaving very differently from a writer who earned $3,000 once and stopped. But income surveys don't always separate those paths. Another issue is that many writers underestimate how many people publish books. In the US alone, hundreds of thousands of fiction titles are released each year across all platforms. Most of those books earn very little. Not because they are bad, but because attention is scarce. When income is divided across such a large pool, the median compresses. This is uncomfortable, but useful. It means low early income isn't evidence of personal failure, it's evidence of market saturation. Understanding that reframes expectations. Instead of asking, "Why isn't my book earning much?" the better question becomes, what would need to be true for this book to earn more? That shift changes how writers approach covers, genres, pricing, and release strategy. It moves the conversation from identity to execution, which is where progress actually happens. Once typical is understood as a statistical middle, not a moral judgment, income data becomes usable instead of discouraging. Average income gets distorted by high earners. Median income shows what the middle author earns. When you look at medians, expectations reset quickly, and usually in a healthy way. Many writers publish one book, wait, get discouraged, and stop. They still appear in income surveys. So do writers who release consistently for years. Those two paths should not be treated as equivalent. Let's look at one scenario. Two writers are both counted as fiction authors. One published one book 3 years ago. The other publishes one book every 6 months. Their income potential is not comparable, but surveys often lump them together. Typical in publishing usually means part-time income spread across many years, not fast replacement income. Traditional publishing income, realistic ranges. Let's talk traditional publishing first, using conservative US-focused ranges. For debut fiction authors at major publishers, advances often fall between $2,000 and $15,000 per book. Many land closer to the lower end. Mid-list authors may see advances in the $10,000 to $40,000 range. Six-figure advances exist, but they represent a small fraction of deals. Advances are usually split into multiple payments: on signing, on manuscript delivery, on publication. These payments can be spread across 12 to 24 months. Another point that's often overlooked is that advances are negotiated based on perceived risk, not artistic merit. Publishers assess genre demand, comparable titles, author platform, and market conditions. A strong manuscript in a soft market may receive a small advance. A weaker manuscript in a hot category may receive more. This creates a false impression that advance size reflects long-term earning potential. It doesn't. In many cases, higher advances increase pressure without increasing upside. Because royalties only kick in after earning out, a larger advance can actually delay meaningful royalty income. Some mid-list authors quietly prefer smaller advances with higher royalty escalators. But those options are rarely discussed publicly. There's also a psychological effect to advances. Because the money arrives before publication, it feels like success, but that feeling can fade quickly when sales numbers stall, marketing support is limited, the book stops being promoted after launch. Many authors experience a sharp emotional drop 6 to 12 months post-publication, not because they failed, but because the system moved on. Traditional publishing is optimized for front-loaded attention. Once a book exits its launch window, the machine reallocates resources. Backlist support exists, but it's not guaranteed. Understanding this early prevents misplaced self-blame later. Traditional publishing income often feels more secure up front, but that security is time-limited and structurally constrained. Typical royalty rates look like hardcover, roughly 10 to 15% of list price, paperback, roughly 6 to 8%, ebooks, roughly 25% of net. Most traditionally published novels do not earn out their advances. That means royalties never exceed the advance amount. Here's an example. A debut author signs a $9,000 advance. They receive $3,000 on signing, $3,000 on delivery, $3,000 on publication. The book sells modestly and never earns out. Total lifetime income before agent fees and taxes, $9,000. Traditional publishing provides upfront money and legitimacy, but most income is capped early. Why traditional author income is often overestimated. Traditional publishing income often sounds higher than it is in practice, not because people are lying, but because structural details get ignored. Most agents take 15% of domestic income. Foreign or subsidiary rights can raise that to 20 to 25%. So a $10,000 advance becomes $7,500 before taxes. Authors may wait years between deals. Payments arrive long after the work is completed. Another factor that inflates perceived traditional income is selective visibility. Publishing highlights wins, award nominations, big advances, bestseller lists. Quiet outcomes rarely get discussed. Most books don't fail dramatically. They simply perform modestly and fade from conversation. This creates survivorship bias. Writers see the deals that worked, not the many that didn't scale. There's also a misunderstanding around career authors. Many traditionally published fiction writers do not earn enough from books alone to stop other work. They teach, they freelance, they consult, they write in other formats. Book income becomes one stream among several. This is not a flaw, it's a structural adaptation. But when book income is reported without context, it appears more robust than it actually is, especially when secondary income is quietly supporting the author's lifestyle. Understanding this removes pressure to make books do everything. Books don't need to carry your entire financial life to be worthwhile. They just need to fit into a realistic system. Traditional income is often overestimated because visibility favors wins and omits supporting structures. Publishers control pricing, promotions, cover changes, and advertising. Authors benefit when publishers invest, but they can't steer the strategy. Here's a scenario. Two authors earn identical advances. One controls pricing and backlist marketing, the other doesn't. 5 years later, their cumulative income diverges. Traditional publishing income often looks larger upfront, but control and scalability are limited. Traditional publishing limits upside early. Self-publishing limits income early, but not upside. Self-publishing income, realistic ranges. Now let's talk self-publishing. Again, conservative numbers. No edge cases. According to written word media and author earnings data, most indie fiction titles earn $0 to $500 per year, especially during the first 12 to 18 months. This is normal. Early self-publishing income is low for reasons that have nothing to do with quality. Retailers prioritize sales velocity, reader behavior, historical performance. A new book has none of those signals. That means early visibility is limited by design. This is why many indie authors see income rise not because a book improves, but because the system starts trusting it. Trust is built through consistent sales, consistent releases, and consistent reader satisfaction. This takes time. Another reason early numbers stay low is pricing experimentation. Many authors underprice or overprice their books before understanding their genre norms. A $2.99 book in one genre may feel expensive in another. A $4.99 book may signal value or resistance. Learning this is part of the process. Low early income often reflects learning curves, not ceilings. That distinction matters because ceilings imply limits. Learning curves imply growth. Early self-publishing income is low not because the model fails, but because the system hasn't gathered enough data yet. Authors with 5 to 10 fiction titles often report total annual income between $2,000 and $10,000, not per book, across the catalog. Authors earning $40,000 to $80,000 per year typically have 10 to 30 books, strong genre alignment, consistent release schedules, and multiple income formats. Here's an example. An author publishes one book per year. Year 1 income, $200. Year 3 income, $2,000. Year 5 income, $10,000. Same author, same skills, more leverage. Self-publishing income starts small and grows unevenly but rewards consistency and ownership. Why self-publishing scales differently over time. This is where most explanations break down, because self-publishing doesn't scale like a job. Each new book introduces readers to previous books. Income stacks instead of resets. Compounding is the single most misunderstood concept in self-publishing. Many writers assume each book is a new gamble. In reality, each book is an amplifier. A reader who enjoys one book doesn't just buy the next, they validate the entire catalog. Retailers notice this behavior. That leads to better recommendation placement, more algorithmic exposure, and lower advertising costs. These advantages stack quietly. This is why experienced indie authors talk about momentum instead of individual launches. Momentum is not hype, it's accumulated trust. Another overlooked factor is optionality. Self-publishing allows authors to test new covers, new blurbs, new pricing, and new formats. Traditional publishing locks most of these decisions. Optionality allows correction. Correction allows optimization. Optimization compounds. That's the loop most people never see explained. Self-publishing scales because it allows correction and accumulation, not because it guarantees success. Indie authors can test prices, bundles, and promotions. Small adjustments can change volume significantly. Ebooks don't go out of print. Audio and translations add layers of income. Here's a concrete scenario. A 10-book series earning $300 per book annually becomes $3,000 organically, $6,000 with ads, $10,000 with audio. Same catalog, different systems. Self-publishing scales through ownership, compounding, and control, not launches. Why headlines about author income mislead writers? Most viral articles compress years into minutes. That's where people lose time. Breakout successes are real, but rare. They are not planning tools. Years of unpaid learning are omitted. Another reason headlines mislead is compression. They compress time, effort, and infrastructure into a single outcome. A 5-year journey becomes a one-line result. This removes the cause and effect relationship writers actually need. Without seeing the steps, outcomes feel unattainable or magical. Neither is useful. Compression also erases attrition. For every visible success, many writers exited quietly. They didn't fail publicly. They simply stopped. Those exits never make headlines, but they shape the averages. Understanding attrition helps writers interpret data more calmly. It explains why persistence correlates so strongly with income, not because persistence guarantees success, but because it filters out early exits. Headlines mislead because they compress journeys into outcomes and hide attrition. Print, ebook, audio, and foreign rights get collapsed into one number. Here's an example. An article claims author earns $100,000. Missing context. 5-year timeline, 12-book catalog, audio and foreign rights. Headlines optimize clicks, not expectations. What success actually looks like for most fiction authors. Here's what nobody explains clearly. Success is usually quiet. Predictable income beats viral moments. For most fiction authors, success looks boring on the outside. It's not a launch party. It's not a viral thread. It's not a sudden income jump. It's steady improvement, better conversion rates, lower ad costs, more reliable reader engagement. These improvements rarely go viral, but they compound. Success also looks like emotional stability, understanding that a slow month isn't a verdict, understanding that a bad launch isn't the end, understanding that progress is uneven by default. Writers who internalize this stay longer. And staying longer is the single strongest predictor of eventual income. Success isn't loud, it's durable. Better covers, cleaner blurbs, faster production. Most earning authors simply didn't quit. Here's a scenario. 2 writers start together. One stops after 2 books. One publishes consistently for 4 years. Only one appears in success statistics. Success is sustained execution, not early validation. If this breakdown helped clarify how fiction income actually works, consider subscribing. Indie Ink exists to reduce confusion and wasted years for writers who want clarity over hype. We also offer a free self-publishing checklist that lays out the execution steps most writers never see clearly explained. It's optional, practical, and designed to be used at your own pace. You'll find it in the description. Most writers are told to measure success only by income. That's incomplete. Real progress looks like a growing catalog, clear systems, predictable timelines, and fewer myths slowing you down. Fiction is not a lottery ticket. It's a long-term creative business with compounding assets. If you understand the systems early, you don't need hype to stay motivated. You need clarity. That's what Indie Ink is here for.